Hello and welcome, my dearest buddy. Some messages reach you like a whisper. Others arrive like a mirror. This is the one. It did not come to persuade you of anything. It came to reaffirm what you already knew, but had forgotten due to being misunderstood for far too long. You were born a star, not the type that wants attention or thrives off of being seen. You weren't fixated on the spotlight, hoping that someone would eventually notice you. In fact, you eventually stopped asking for it. You knew that with my awareness, I could outperform everyone, but I don't have to prove it. You were born special, and it didn't come easily. People called you odd. It included instances in which your stillness in a noisy setting was misinterpreted as weakness. It began with you seeing life through a lens that others did not grasp. Instead of questioning why they judged, you were criticized for thinking too profoundly, naked to mate, and dreaming too freely. But none of that affected what you carried. Not for 1 second. You did not surrender. You persevered. So here's the deal. They never actually saw you. Not the true you. Because if they had, they would have noticed you weren't attempting to rebel. You were simply trying to be. At some time, you made a silent decision. I do not know anyone. An explanation. You quit living your life based on the comfort of others' opinions. You enabled yourself to be optimistic in a world that profits on fear. You let yourself be creative, not for plaudits and not for money, but it's the way your soul breathes. You paused to send a flower as others rushed for another dollar. You watched the sun rise without considering what more constructive activity you could be performing instead. You granted yourself freedom to just live humbly, proudly, and without reason. That's unusual. Do you know what else you learned? Knowledge is not the same as awareness. You may read 1,000 books and yet feel alienated from your own spirit. You may recite every self-help quote and still overlook the voice that has gently guided you your entire life. You figured it out. You stopped chasing avenues that were not meant for you. You gave up attempting to judge your success using criteria that never resonated in the first place. Your soul understands the route and what it looks like, where it bends. Why is it harder? Why is it yours? And you've learned to accept it completely. You didn't push yourself to be cheerful when everything seemed cruel or unfair. You didn't slap platitudes over sadness and pretend everything was okay. You allowed yourself to feel what was genuine. You did not attempt to change your life. You enable yourself to view things differently. That altered everything. This is more than simply a new perspective. This represents a new way of being. You stop having to conform to systems, labels, or timetables. You are no longer bound by the assumption that you must adhere to a specific framework or match someone else's definition of success. You're realizing that the most wonderful form of freedom is living without excuse and enjoying yourself through it. Remember when you were at a party and everyone was complaining about surface-level problems and you just nodded politely, despite the fact that inside you felt this deep truth that no one else was touching? Or how you've always noticed something off about certain conversations, as if everyone is agreeing on something shallow to avoid going deeper. And you're sitting there wondering, is this really all we're going to say about it? You are not being remote. You were only awake while others clung to the delusion because it seemed safer than confronting the truth. You did not. You stood in it, even though it made you feel lonely. That's what makes you unique. That's what gives you power. You did not need permission to let go. You hadn't even planned to do it. And without having to proclaim it, you relieved all of the strain, proving and pretending. You've evolved into the type of soul that travels smoothly across the world, but it makes a lasting impression wherever you go. Perhaps the most astounding aspect of all this is that you never had to yell to be heard. You do not struggle to be seen. You no longer seek significance, because as soon as you let go, it began rising to meet you. In a world obsessed with illusion, you've transformed into a mirror of something genuine. You don't pretend to have everything worked out. And that is precisely why others feel secure around you. Because you're not selling assurance. You are living the truth softly, totally, and truthfully. The irony today is that you've let go of the urge to be understood. People are now beginning to comprehend. Not because you altered who you were, but because you quit explaining. And now that you're not so concerned about having particular things by a specific time, everything is coming together well. Almost like the moment you stopped seeking life and began educating people simply by existing. Money is not necessarily the symbol of significance, a companion, a career, or confidence. Sometimes it's all of them. Sometimes there is none. Sometimes it's something completely else. It sometimes appears to be sitting in the park for no apparent purpose. Sometimes it's about how you see beauty. Others stroll past. Sometimes it happens in the moment. You say no without shame, or yes without fear. You've understood that mastery of life does not equate to peace. It's the outcome of not feeling the need to master it at all. There is no formula for your route, and you finally stop pretending there's one. This is not only about growth. It's called evolution. You aren't merely someone who gets through difficulties. You are altered by them. And here's the lovely twist. The world is starting to take notice. Not because you attempted to get recognized. Not because you pushed it, but because being around you makes others feel something. They don't always understand what it is, but they sense it. It's in a manner you talk clearly. It's the way you hesitate before responding. It's how you make room for stuff. Others hurry past. You are not loud, yet your presence stays. You do not demand attention, but you manage to hold it. You aren't attempting to impress anyone. People are impressed by how profoundly you've connected with yourself. This is the sort of energy that transforms rooms and doesn't require a platform to be effective. You were born a star, not one that burns out pursuing approval, but one that remains steady in the sky as others find their way back to themselves. You are not attempting to lead anyone. You just aren't frightened to stroll alone. And it is what motivates people to follow. You did not do it for adulation. You did not do it for applause. You did it because something deep within you refused to accept a life that did not feel like your own. That is bravery. That is alignment. That is genuine. So, if things around you are beginning to seem different, and people are amazed at how clear you've become, how come you are? How grounded do you feel? It's not a fluke. You did not lie your way into this vibe. You became it. You did not ask to be an example, yet you are. You are proof that it is possible to live a full, important, and creative life without seeking permission. You are the type of person who has transformed survival into knowledge, misery into perspective, and today, without even trying. You are transforming presence into power. Allow it to land. Let this be real. Because it's like discovering an old snapshot from years ago and now seeing yourself clearly in it. Not just your appearance, but your spirit. You were always becoming this. Even then, you didn't have the words to express it. You owe nothing to this planet. Nevertheless, your presence is a gift. You didn't just survive. You did not merely develop. You remembered, and now that you remember, the world will never be the same again. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. If you found this message useful, please like the video and share it with others who may benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and continue your incredible adventure by watching one of the videos on your screen that speaks to you most. See you there.